If your dog has been draining that water bowl faster than usual lately, don't look away from this one, because somewhere in the next 7 signs is the exact moment that separates the owners who catch something early from the ones who realize too late. I'm Dr. Michael, and today we're going to walk through what's normal, what's a yellow flag, and which single sign on this list means you don't wait for your next scheduled appointment. You pick up the phone today. Here's where most owners go wrong, and honestly, it's an easy trap to fall into. You notice the bowl's a little emptier than usual? It's hot outside, she's getting older. Maybe I switched her food. And sometimes that story is completely true. But sometimes it isn't. And here's the unsettling part. For weeks, those two situations look exactly the same from the outside. The only way to actually tell them apart is to understand what your dog's body is trying to tell you. That's what today is for. Before we get into the 7 signs, I want you to do one small thing, not later, right now. Think back over this past week. How many times did you fill that water bowl compared to a normal week? You don't need an exact number. Just hold that thought loosely in the back of your mind, because by the time we reach the end of this video, that number is going to mean something very different to you than it does right now. Let's start with the sign most owners eventually notice, but almost never at first. There's a woman we'll call Claire. For a while, everything with her dog felt completely normal. Then slowly, the bowl started going empty by mid-afternoon instead of by evening. She'd fill it, then again the next day. And here's the part that catches almost everyone off guard. Within 2 weeks, she'd stopped noticing it as unusual at all. It had just quietly become what her dog does now. That's the first sign, and it's the quietest one on this entire list. A steady, gradual rise in how much your dog drinks and how often they need to go out afterward. Here's why it matters more than it seems. Increased thirst and increased urination are 2 sides of the same coin. When a dog's body is producing more urine than normal, it responds by making the dog thirstier to replace what's being lost. It's the body trying to hold itself in balance. Which means if you're seeing more urination, more thirst is almost always following behind it. And if you're seeing more thirst, more urination is usually already happening too, even if you haven't clocked it yet. So what do you actually do with this? You measure, not guess, measure. Fill the bowl to a specific line and track how much disappears in 24 hours compared to what's normal for your dog's size. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but this one habit is what quietly separates the owners who catch things early from the ones who don't notice until it's already serious. And hang on to one more thread while we go. Has your dog started any new medication recently? Keep that question in your pocket. It's going to matter more than you'd expect later on. Now the list stops being general and starts pointing at specific things that could actually be happening inside your dog's body. And the first one catches almost everyone off guard, the first time they hear it. Meet a dog we'll call Tucker. His owner mentioned it almost as an afterthought. Tucker had been eating more than usual lately, finishing his bowl fast, sometimes looking for more. On the surface, that sounds like a good thing. A healthy appetite. Except Tucker was also losing weight. Not dramatically, just enough that his owner kept second-guessing herself. Is he actually thinner? Or am I imagining it? Here's the piece that doesn't add up at first. A dog eating more and losing weight at the same time. But it makes complete sense once you know what's happening underneath. This combination, increased thirst, increased appetite, and unexplained weight loss, is one of the clearest patterns pointing toward diabetes mellitus, a hormonal condition where the body loses its ability to regulate blood sugar properly. When blood sugar climbs too high, the body tries to flush the extra sugar out through urine. And because sugar pulls water along with it, that means more urine, which means more thirst, which means the dog drinks more just to keep up. It's a cycle, and once it starts, it doesn't quietly resolve on its own. I want to be direct here. This isn't something you diagnose at home, and it's not something you wait out. A veterinarian confirms it through blood work, and treatment usually means insulin therapy alongside dietary changes. The good news, this is one of the more manageable conditions on today's list once it's caught. The harder news, the next sign is where things get trickier to spot because it hides behind something that looks completely ordinary. There's a 9-year-old dog we'll call Bailey who developed what his owner affectionately called a bit of a belly over the past year, along with some thinning fur on his sides. She chalked it up to age. Older dogs get a little round, older dogs lose a bit of coat. That's just what happens, right? Here's the uncomfortable truth. That specific combination, a pot-bellied, sagging abdomen paired with hair loss and increased thirst, is actually one of the more recognizable patterns of Cushing's disease, also known as hyperadrenocorticism. It happens when the body produces too much of the stress hormone cortisol over a long stretch of time, and one effect of that excess hormone is that it interferes with how the kidneys manage water balance, driving up both thirst and urination. In fact, this is the most common underlying cause of this particular kind of water regulation disruption in dogs. The reason this one slips past so many people is that every individual symptom looks like ordinary aging on its own. A little belly, a little less fur, a little more water. It's only when you line them up side by side that the pattern becomes unmistakable, which is exactly why so many owners don't catch it until a vet points it out during a completely unrelated visit. If your dog's shape has shifted over the past year in a way you've been quietly writing off as just getting older, that's worth bringing up at their next appointment specifically, not just accepting. You caught that one? Good. Most owners don't. And here's why the next sign gets missed, even by people who think they're paying close attention. There's a moment some owners never quite forget, even though it looked small at the time. For one, it was watching her dog turn his head away from his favorite treat. Not a dramatic refusal, just a quiet turn away, for the first time in 3 years of offering that same treat at that same hour every evening. She almost let it go. He'd seemed a little tired that week too, a little less interested in his evening walk. Nothing dramatic, just different. This is where the pattern gets quieter instead of louder, and that's exactly the point. A drop in appetite, lower energy, and increased thirst together can point toward chronic kidney disease, one of the most common reasons dogs develop this drink more, urinate more pattern. What's happening is that the kidneys are gradually losing their ability to concentrate urine properly, so the body compensates by producing more urine and in turn needing more water to keep pace. Here's what makes this one so dangerous. It's slow. It doesn't spike suddenly the way some other signs on this list do. It creeps in over weeks or months, and by the time it's obvious, the kidneys have often already lost a significant amount of function because they're remarkably good at compensating right up until the moment they simply can't anymore. If you've noticed even a slight dip in your dog's energy or appetite alongside more drinking, that combination alone is reason enough to ask your vet for blood work and a urinalysis. You don't need every symptom on this list to justify checking. Now, what if this didn't creep in slowly at all? What if it hit almost overnight? That changes everything, and it's exactly where we're headed next. This next sign is the one I want every single person watching to take seriously, especially if your dog is an unspayed female. There's a dog we'll call Luna, about 3 weeks past her last heat cycle, who suddenly started drinking heavily, not gradually, almost overnight, and seemed unusually tired, almost withdrawn. Her owner noticed a slight discharge and assumed it was just the tail end of her cycle. She decided to wait a few more days and see if it would pass. Here's why that waiting period matters so much. A sudden, sharp increase in thirst, especially alongside other symptoms, and especially in an unspayed female recently out of heat, can point to pyometra, a serious infection of the uterus. This is different from almost everything else on this list because the other conditions we've covered tend to build gradually, giving you time to notice, mention it, and get it checked. Pyometra doesn't offer that grace period. It can escalate quickly, and a sudden onset of these symptoms together is generally treated as needing same-day veterinary attention, not a wait-and-see approach. I know that's a heavier moment in this video, and I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because this is exactly the kind of sign where knowing the pattern in advance is what lets an owner act fast instead of hoping it resolves on its own. If your female dog is unspayed and you're seeing this combination, that's not a let's monitor for a few more days situation, that's a call today situation. Take a breath because the next sign isn't an emergency. It trips people up in a completely different way. Here's a scenario that plays out more often than you'd think. A dog starts a new medication, maybe for allergies, maybe for seizures, maybe a diuretic for a heart condition, and within days the owner notices the water bowl emptying faster, and because they already know exactly why, they stop paying attention to it altogether. It's just the medication, nothing to worry about. Except that assumption is exactly where things can quietly go wrong. It's true that certain medications, including corticosteroids, certain anti-seizure medications, and diuretics, are well known to independently increase thirst and urination as a side effect. That part is accurate, and often, it really is the full explanation. But here's the catch. Assuming it's just the medication can mean an owner stops watching for changes entirely, and if a second unrelated condition develops at the same time, the medication becomes the perfect cover story for missing it. So the actionable piece here is simple, even if it's easy to skip. If your dog starts a new medication and their thirst increases, mention it to your vet at the next check-in rather than filing it away as already explained. Ask specifically whether the level of thirst you're seeing falls within the expected range for that medication or whether it's more than expected. That one question is the difference between correctly ruling something out and only assuming you have. Remember sign 1, the baseline, the simple habit of measuring instead of guessing? This final sign is exactly why that habit matters more than almost anything else on this list. There's a very different kind of dog for this last one. A dog who seems completely healthy in every other way. Good energy, normal appetite, no weight change, no other symptoms at all. And yet this dog drinks constantly, sometimes from the bowl seconds after it's just been refilled, sometimes from puddles, sometimes standing at the sink waiting for the tap. His owner describes it less like thirst and more like an obsession. This is psychogenic, or behavioral, polydipsia, a pattern where a dog drinks compulsively even when the body doesn't actually need the water. It's considered uncommon, and importantly, it's not something you diagnose by ruling it in. It's something a vet diagnoses by ruling every other cause out first, often through specific testing that measures how well the kidneys concentrate urine under controlled conditions. In other words, this is the one explanation that should never be your first assumption at home, because it's only accurate once every more serious possibility on this list has already been eliminated. Which brings everything back to where we started. Measuring instead of guessing was never just a nice habit. It's the piece of information that helps a vet tell the difference between a genuine medical condition and a behavioral one. Without that baseline, every explanation on this list looks identical from the outside. So here's what I actually want you to do once this video ends. Not go check the water bowl right now, you already know to do that. Track it properly instead. For the next 24 hours, notice how many times you refill that bowl and roughly how much disappears by the end of the day. Write it down if you need to. That single number will tell your vet more than almost anything else you could say, because it turns "I think she's drinking more" into something a professional can actually act on. 7 signs. Some build slowly, over months, hiding in plain sight behind ordinary explanations. One can turn everything upside down almost overnight. But all 7 start the exact same way, with a water bowl a little emptier than it used to be, and an owner who has to decide whether that's worth paying attention to. You know which ones to watch closely now. You know the one that means you don't wait. And the next time you walk past that bowl and think, that seems like a lot, you won't explain it away. You'll actually look. If this helped you see your dog a little more clearly today, that's exactly why this channel exists. I'll see you in the next one.